Admiral Sarah walked through the grand halls of the Galactic Council building. On Nexus Prime, her black hair was pulled back in a neat style, and her blue uniform showed her rank as chief arbitrator. She had worked hard to get this position. No human had ever held such an important job in galactic politics before. The building was huge and beautiful. Crystal walls reached up to the ceiling, and light came through them in rainbow colors. Aliens from dozens of worlds walked around her. Some had scales, others had fur, and some looked like living rocks. They all showed respect when they saw her. She had earned that respect over many years. Today was important. Two powerful groups were at war, and Sarah had to help them make peace. The Empire was a race of tall, gray-skinned warriors who loved to fight. They had been at war with the Crystalline Collective for 50 years. The Crystallines were made of living crystal and could share thoughts with each other. Both sides had lost millions of lives. Sarah had spent months preparing for this meeting. She read every report and studied both cultures. She knew the valued strength and honor. She knew the Crystallines made decisions as a group and moved slowly. Getting them to agree would not be easy, but she had done harder things before. The meeting room was round with a high dome ceiling. Representatives from both sides sat at opposite ends of a long table. The delegation was led by General, a massive alien with 4 arms and red eyes. His skin was covered in scars from many battles. Across from him sat the crystalline speaker, a being that looked like a walking diamond. Light moved through its body when it talked. Honored representatives, Sarah said as she took her place at the head of the table, we are here to end a war that has caused too much pain. Both your peoples have suffered. Both your peoples deserve peace. General slammed one of his fists on the table. The crystal things attacked our colonies first. We will not stop until they pay for their crimes. The crystalline speaker's body flashed with angry red light. Your people invaded our sacred worlds. You destroyed temples that were older than your entire civilization. Sarah raised her hand for quiet. I understand your anger, but anger will not bring back the dead. Only peace can stop more death. She spent hours going back and forth between the two sides. She offered trade deals, territory exchanges, and compensation packages. Slowly, very slowly, both sides began to listen. The wanted their wounded pride healed. The crystallines wanted their holy places protected. Sarah found ways to give both sides what they needed. By evening, they were close to an agreement. Sarah felt tired but hopeful. She had mediated dozens of conflicts, but this one felt special. If she could end this war, millions of lives would be saved. During a break, a young diplomat named approached her. He was smaller than most of his kind, with smooth gray skin and intelligent yellow eyes. Chief Arbitrator, he said in careful words, I have great respect for your work. May I offer you a drink? It is a traditional tea that shows honor to important guests. Sarah smiled. That is very kind of you. I would be honored to try it. The tea was purple and smelled like flowers. It tasted bitter, but not unpleasant. Sarah drank it to show respect for culture. She had learned that small gestures like this often meant more than grand speeches. They returned to the meeting room for the final session. Sarah felt confident they could reach an agreement tonight. She began to read the peace treaty terms out loud. Both sides listened carefully. Then something felt wrong. Sarah's hands began to shake. The words on the paper became blurry. A sharp pain shot through her head. "Are you all right, Chief?" Arbitrator General asked. Even though they were enemies, he looked concerned. Sarah tried to stand, but her legs would not work. The pain in her head got worse. She fell back into her chair. The room began to spin around her. "Something is wrong," she said, her voice weak. I think I have been poisoned." Panic filled the room. Security guards ran in. Medical teams were called, but Sarah knew it was too late. The poison was moving through her body fast. Her nervous system was shutting down bit by bit. She looked at his face. Was calm, but she saw guilt in his yellow eyes. He had poisoned her. But why? She had been trying to help his people. "Get me a communication device," Sarah whispered to her human aide. Her words were hard to understand now. "I need to send a message to Earth." Aide brought her a small device. With shaking fingers, Sarah activated it. She could barely see the controls. The pain was getting worse every second. "This is Chief Arbitrator Sarah," she said into the device. Her voice was very quiet now. "I am dying. They have poisoned me. But before I go, I need to tell Earth something important." She paused, fighting through the pain. "Remember who we really are." Those were her last words. Sarah, the first human chief arbitrator of the Galactic Council, died in that meeting room. She was surrounded by aliens who had respected her and one who had killed her. The security investigation was quick. The cameras clearly showed putting something in Sarah's tea. When they arrested him, he did not resist. He said only that he was following orders from higher up in the government. The galaxy waited to see how humans would react. Everyone expected anger, maybe some political demands for justice. Some thought humans might pull out of the Galactic Council entirely. What no one expected was silence. Earth's government said nothing for 3 days. Human colonies across the galaxy were quiet. Human ships stayed in their normal patrol routes. Human diplomats continued their regular work as if nothing had happened. This silence worried the other races more than any angry speech would have. They knew humans well enough to know that quiet humans were often more dangerous than angry ones, but they had no idea just how dangerous these particular humans could be. On the 4th day, a message came from Earth. A new representative would arrive soon to take Sarah's position. Until then, all scheduled meetings would continue as planned. The galaxy relaxed a little. It seemed like humans were going to handle this through normal diplomatic channels. They were wrong, very, very wrong. 3 days passed after Sarah's death. Galactic Council tried to return to normal business, but everyone felt nervous. The government claimed that it acted alone without orders. They offered to pay money to Earth as an apology. They also promised to put him on trial in their own courts. Most races in the galaxy expected this to end the matter. Humans were known for being reasonable. They liked to solve problems with talks and treaties, not with violence. But something felt different this time. Admiral arrived on Nexus Prime to take Sarah's place. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He wore the same blue uniform that Sarah had worn, but he looked very different in it. Sarah had always smiled and seemed warm when she met people. His face showed no emotion at all. The first sign that things had changed came from the border worlds. Ship captains reported seeing strange vessels near their planets. The ships were sleek and black, unlike any human design anyone had seen before. When the Navy tried to scan them, the ships simply disappeared, not into hyperspace, they just vanished like they had never been there. General was confused. He called the human embassy to complain about the ships entering space without permission. What ships? Asked the human ambassador. According to our records, no human vessels are in your territory, but the ships kept appearing, not just at the border worlds, but deeper in space. They would hover silently near important military bases and government buildings that tried everything to detect them. Advanced sensors, quantum radar, psionic detection, nothing worked. The ships were like ghosts. The crystalline collective also reported strange events. Their computer networks, which had been secure for centuries, were being accessed by unknown users. Someone was copying massive amounts of data. When their best technicians tried to trace the intrusions, they found nothing. It was as if invisible hands were reading their most secret files. Other races began reporting similar problems. The merchant guilds found their private trade communications were being monitored. The research stations detected energy signatures that matched no known technology. Everywhere in the galaxy, it seemed like someone was watching and listening. Admiral called for a special meeting of the Galactic Council. When he walked into the chamber where Sarah had died, every representative felt a chill. He did not look around the room or greet anyone. He simply took his place at the chief arbitrator's podium. Fellow representatives, he began, his voice flat and cold. I am here to discuss the murder of chief arbitrator. The delegate, a nervous official named, stood up quickly. Admiral, our government has already explained that the criminal acted alone. We offer full compensation and promise justice through our courts. Looked at him for a long moment. Your explanation is not sufficient. The room became very quiet. Pressed a button on the podium and a large screen appeared behind him. It showed a recording of meeting with several high-ranking officials 3 weeks before Sarah's death. This conversation took place in a secure government building on your capital world. Said your officials gave detailed instructions on how to poison chief arbitrator. They provided him with the weapon used to kill her. Looked shocked. That is impossible. Those meetings were classified. No one could have recorded them, yet here we are. Replied. The screen showed more recordings, conversations between leaders and officials from 5 races. They were all planning to remove Sarah from power because her influence was growing too strong. The crystalline speaker's body flashed with yellow light, which meant confusion. How did you obtain these recordings? Our security systems detected no intrusions. Cold blue eyes swept across the room. We have been watching all of you for a very long time. Every conversation, every private message, every secret meeting. We have recorded it all. A general with insect-like features clicked his mandibles nervously. That is impossible. The technology required would be centuries beyond what humans possess. Wooded asked. He pressed another button and the screen showed detailed technical specifications for weapons, ships, and computer systems that were far more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. You have made an error. Continued. You believe that what you saw was all that we were. You thought our small fleet and peaceful nature meant we were weak. You were wrong. The trade minister, a blue-kinned being with large black eyes, spoke up. Are you threatening us, Admiral? I am informing you, replied. Chief Arbitrator believed in peace. She convinced us to limit our military presence and hide our true capabilities. She said that revealing our full strength would frighten other races unnecessarily. He paused and for the first time showed emotion, a cold smile that made everyone in the room feel afraid. Chief Arbitrator is dead. Her beliefs about hiding our nature died with her. Activated another display. It showed star maps with thousands of red dots scattered throughout human space. Each dot represented a military installation that the galaxy had never known existed. Our small fleet of 200 ships was actually just our diplomatic escort. Explained, our real military has been building quietly for decades. We now have over 50,000 vessels, each more advanced than your best warships. Room erupted in shocked whispers and nervous chatter. Some representatives began activating emergency communicators to contact their home worlds. There is more said and the noise stopped. We have identified everyone involved in the conspiracy to murder Chief Arbitrator. 6 races participated in planning her death. You have 96 hours to surrender those responsible. The general stood up, his wings buzzing with anger. You cannot make demands of sovereign governments. The Galactic Council does not work that way. Looked at him with those cold blue eyes. The Galactic Council worked Chief Arbitrator sway. She believed in negotiation and compromise. I do not. What happens if we refuse your demands? Asked the crystalline speaker. Smile returned even colder than before. Then you will learn why Chief Arbitrator was so insistent that we hide what we really are. She understood that some knowledge is too dangerous to share. He began walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back to the room. You killed the one person who convinced monsters to be gentle. I suggest you consider what that means for your future. As left the chamber, representatives began frantically contacting their governments. Ships were deployed, defenses were activated, and emergency meetings were called on dozens of worlds, but none of it mattered. The humans were already there, watching from the shadows with technology that made them invisible. They had been there all along, and now the galaxy was beginning to understand what that meant. The 96-hour countdown had begun. The galaxy moved into emergency mode within hours of ultimatum. Every major government called urgent meetings. Military fleets were put on high alert. Spy networks tried desperately to learn more about these hidden human forces, but the humans were already everywhere. On Prime General stared at reports from his intelligence officers. Somehow, humans had been monitoring their most secure military facilities for years. Not just watching from space, they had been inside their buildings, copying files from computers that were not connected to any network. How is this possible? Demanded. Our security systems are the best in the galaxy. His aide, a younger warrior named, looked terrified. Sir, we found something else. Our weapons factories have been infiltrated. Someone has been copying our designs for decades. Felt his blood go cold. They were the most militaristic race in the galaxy. Their weapons technology was their greatest advantage. If humans had stolen all their designs and improved them with their own advanced science. Meanwhile, on the crystal world of the crystalline, collective shared thoughts in their massive neural network, what they discovered made their crystalline bodies flash with fear. Every decision they had made for the past 30 years had been observed and recorded by human agents. The humans had not just watched them. They had studied them. They knew how crystalline society worked better than the crystallines knew themselves. They had maps of every crystal city, profiles of every important leader, and copies of every secret the collective had ever tried to hide. Deep in space, human ships began to appear in systems that had thought themselves safely hidden. These were not the small diplomatic vessels the galaxy was used to seeing. These ships were massive, dark, and clearly built for war. The human fleet that emerged from hidden bases was beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. Each ship was at least twice the size of the largest known warships. They moved in perfect formations and used technology that bent the normal rules of space travel. Admiral Sword's about 50,000 ships had been conservative. Intelligence reports suggested there were actually closer to 70,000, with more being constructed in facilities that had somehow remained hidden for decades. But the ships themselves were not the most frightening discovery. It was what the humans had learned during their years of secret observation. The government discovered that humans had complete genetic profiles of their entire species. They knew which were naturally aggressive, which were natural leaders, and which could be trusted. They had studied psychology so thoroughly that they could predict individual behavior with frightening accuracy. The merchant guilds found that their most profitable trade routes had been known to humans for years. Humans had even secretly influenced some deals to prevent conflicts that might have destabilized galactic trade. Every race made the same disturbing discovery. Humans understood them better than they understood themselves. Emergency meetings were called on Nexus Prime. Representatives from the 6 races involved in Sarah's murder gathered to discuss their response to ultimatum. We cannot surrender our officials to human justice, declared the general. It would set a dangerous precedent. The crystalline speaker's body flickered with nervous blue light. But what if they are telling the truth about their military capabilities? Our intelligence estimates suggest they could destroy any of our fleets. They are bluffing, insisted the delegate. No race could hide such a massive military buildup. Our sensors would have detected it. A new voice entered the conversation. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. Everyone turned to see Admiral standing in the doorway. He had entered the secure meeting room without triggering any alarms. His security detail, 2 humans in black uniforms, looked relaxed and confident. How did you get in here? Demanded the general. This facility has the best security in the galaxy. Walk to the center of the room. We designed your security systems 40 years ago. Human engineers worked as consultants on this building. We included certain features that you never discovered. He activated a small device, and suddenly the room filled with holographic displays. They showed real-time feeds from inside the most secure facilities on every world represented in the room. We have been inside your governments, your militaries, and your intelligence services for decades, explained calmly. We know where every weapon is stored, where every leader sleeps, and where Every important decision is made. The representatives stared at the displays. In horror, they could see their own military commanders in what they had thought were secure bunkers. They watched their intelligence chiefs reading reports that human agents had probably written. Why, asked the crystalline speaker, why did you hide this from us? Expression softened slightly, and for a moment he looked sad because Sarah asked us to. She believed that revealing our true nature would destroy the peace she worked so hard to build. She convinced us that other races needed to develop at their own pace without fear of human domination. He gestured to the holographic displays, and they changed to show images of Sarah negotiating treaties, settling disputes, and preventing wars. She spent her entire career protecting you from us. Continued. Every time our military suggested a more direct approach to galactic problems, she convinced them that patience and diplomacy were better solutions. The minister spoke up, his voice shaking. What do you want from us? Justice, replied simply. The people who planned Sarah's murder must face trial, not in your courts but in ours. And if we refuse, looked at him for a long moment, then you will discover why Sarah worked so hard to keep us peaceful. She understood something that you are only beginning to learn. What is that? Whispered the general. Cold smile returned. Humans are not naturally peaceful, we are naturally violent. Sarah was the one who taught us to choose peace over our instincts. Without her influence, he let the sentence hang in the air. The holographic displays changed again, showing detailed analysis of every military asset each race possessed. Next to each display was a human assessment marked in red text. Inadequate for defense, you have 60 hours remaining, said as he walked toward the exit. I suggest you use them wisely. After the humans left, the 6 representatives sat in stunned silence. They had thought they understood the balance of power in the galaxy. They had believed that humans were just another race, maybe a little clever, but nothing special. Now they knew the truth. Humans had been the dominant force in the galaxy all along. They had simply chosen not to act like it, and that choice had died with Sarah. Emergency communications went out to every government involved in the conspiracy. Military leaders tried to prepare defenses against an enemy they now realized they had never truly understood. Scientists worked frantically to develop weapons that might work against human technology, but in their hearts they all knew it was useless. You cannot fight an enemy who has been watching you for decades, who knows your every weakness, and who has technology that makes your best weapons look like toys. The countdown continued, and with each passing hour the galaxy grew more desperate. They had killed the one human who had protected them from humanity's true nature. Now they would face the consequences of that choice. The 96 hours passed with no surrender from any of the conspirators. The 6 governments involved had spent the time preparing for war, moving fleets into defensive positions and activating their most powerful weapons. They hoped that united they might be able to resist whatever the humans planned. They were wrong. Admiral appeared again at the Galactic Council, this time flanked by a full honor guard of human soldiers. Their black uniforms were different from anything seen before, and the energy signatures from their weapons made several races' detection equipment overload. The time for surrender has passed, announced to the gathered Representatives, since you have chosen to reject justice, we will provide you with education instead. He activated a communication device and spoke a single word: begin. The lesson started at VII, an uninhabited rocky planet on the edge of space. The world had no life, no resources, and no strategic value. It was chosen specifically because destroying it would not harm any living beings. A single human ship appeared in orbit around VII. It was larger than any vessel the galaxy had ever seen, nearly 10 km long and covered in armor that seemed to absorb light. The ship made no threatening moves. It simply positioned itself above the planet and began charging a weapon. Every military in the galaxy watched through long-range sensors. Scientists and weapons experts studied the energy readings, trying to understand what was about to happen. Human ship fired once. The beam that struck Vi was not like any weapon ever witnessed. It did not explode or burn or melt. Instead, it seemed to reach into the very structure of matter itself. The planet's crust began to crack like the shell of an egg. Massive fissures spread across continents within seconds, but the humans stopped there. They could have continued firing and turned the entire world into dust. Instead, they let everyone see what they had chosen not to do. The message was clear. This was restraint, not their full power. General stared at the sensor readings from Vi in disbelief. What kind of weapon can crack a planet's crust with one shot? His weapons expert, trembling engineer, studied the data. Sir, the energy output was off our measurement scales, but the strain thing is they held back. The weapon could have destroyed the planet completely. How do you know that? Because they told us so, the engineer replied, pointing to a message that had appeared on every screen in their command center. The humans are broadcasting technical specifications for their weapon. They want us to understand exactly how much power they just chose not to use. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Every government that had participated in Sarah's murder received detailed information about human weapons capabilities. The data was terrifying, not because of what the humans had done, but because of what they could do. The demonstrations continued, but not with more planet cracking. The humans had made their point about raw destructive power. Now they showed their precision. Faster than light communication networks began failing across the galaxy, not through explosions or attacks, but through something much more subtle. Human cyber warfare specialists simply turned them off. Quantum encryption that had been considered unbreakable was cracked like it was a child's puzzle. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries suddenly became dangerous, not because of pirates or military attacks, but because human ships appeared and politely requested all vessels return home immediately. When asked why, the humans simply said that those space lanes were temporarily closed for security reasons. The galactic economy began to collapse within days. Without communication and trade, the complex network of alliances and agreements that held civilizations together started falling apart. But the most frightening demonstrations were the captures. One by one, the officials who had planned Sarah's assassination began disappearing from the most secure locations in the galaxy. They were not killed or kidnapped in dramatic raids. They simply vanished from places where vanishing should have been impossible. The first was Admiral Anon, high-ranking officer who had provided the weapon used to poison Sarah. He disappeared from his private quarters inside the most heavily defended military base on Prime. The security cameras showed him entering his room, but never showed him leaving. When guards broke down the doors later, they found only a note: Admiral Ann is now in human custody and will face trial for murder. The security recordings were reviewed hundreds of times. Expert analysts studied every frame. There was no sign of intruders, no evidence of teleportation technology, and no indication of how anyone could have entered or left that room without being detected. The second disappearance was even more impossible. Crystal Mind, a senior member of the Crystalline Collective's ruling council, vanished while connected to their shared consciousness network. Thousands of crystallines were mentally linked to when it happened. One moment the connection was strong and clear, the next moment it was simply gone. The crystallines searched frantically through their network, believing that had somehow been mentally severed from the collective. But then they found the message written in perfect crystalline thought language. Crystal Mind is in human custody for trial. The collective will not be harmed, but cooperation is advised. Each capture was broadcast to the galaxy not as a boast but as evidence for the coming trials. The humans showed they could reach anyone anywhere at any time. No security was sufficient, no hiding place was safe. The psychological effect was devastating. Leaders who had felt secure in their power began to understand that they were only free because the humans allowed it. Every government official now knew they went to sleep each night only because human agents chose not to visit them. But perhaps the most terrifying demonstration came when the humans revealed how long they had been watching. On the major news networks, recordings began playing of conversations that had happened decades ago, private meetings between officials, planning various conflicts, secret deals to start wars for profit, hidden alliances designed to manipulate galactic politics. The humans had recorded it all, every crime, every conspiracy, every secret deal that had caused suffering in the galaxy. They had evidence of everything. We have been patient, Admiral announced in a galactic broadcast. For 60 years we have watched you repeat the same mistakes. We have seen you start wars over pride, trade disputes over greed, and genocides over fear. We have watched billions die because you could not learn to coexist peacefully. His cold blue eyes stared into the camera, and every being watching felt like he was looking directly at them. Sarah convinced us that you needed time to grow, to become better. She believed that with proper guidance all races could learn to live in peace. She dedicated her life to proving that belief. Paused and his voice became even colder. You murdered her for it. You killed the one person who stood between your chaotic nature and our judgment. Now you will face the consequences of that choice. The broadcast ended with a simple announcement: the trial of the conspirators will begin tomorrow. The court will convene at the exact coordinates where Chief Arbitrator died. All races are invited to observe justice being served. As the message ended, a massive human ship materialized in orbit around Nexus Prime. It was not like the sleek vessels they had shown before. This ship looked ancient and powerful, like it had been built for ceremonies that were older than most civilizations. The trial ship had arrived, and the Galaxy held its breath as it waited to see what human justice would look like. They would not have to wait long. Conspirators had been caught, the evidence had been gathered, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy what happened to those who murdered the guardians of peace. The age of hidden human restraint was over. The age of visible human judgment had begun. The trial ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not built for war or exploration, but for judgment. The massive vessel hung in space exactly where Sarah had died, its dark hull reflecting the light of nearby stars like a black mirror. Representatives from every major civilization came to witness the proceedings. They had no choice. The humans had made it clear that attendance was expected, not optional. The trial would be broadcast across the galaxy so that everyone could see what happened to those who murdered peace itself. Inside the ship, the courtroom was vast and solemn. The walls were made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb sound, making every word spoken echo with weight and finality. At the center sat Admiral, but he was no longer wearing his military uniform. Instead, he wore the black robes of a human judge, an office that most aliens had never known existed. The captured conspirators were brought in one by one. They were not chained or restrained. The humans had made it clear that escape was impossible. Each prisoner looked around the courtroom with expressions ranging from defiance to terror. Admiral on the who had provided the poison tried to maintain his warrior's pride. I do not recognize the authority of this court, he declared. Under galactic law, I can only be tried by my own people. Looked at him with those cold blue eyes. Galactic law died with chief arbitrator. This court operates under human law now. You have no right to change our laws. Voice remained perfectly calm. Rights are taken, not given. We are taking them. Now the evidence was presented methodically and without emotion. Humans played recordings of every meeting, every conversation, and every decision that had led to Sarah's death. They showed financial records proving the conspiracy had been planned for months. They presented psychological profiles explaining why each conspirator had chosen to participate. The evidence was overwhelming, but that was not the point. The trial was not about determining guilt. The humans had already done that. The trial was about showing the galaxy what justice looked like when administered by beings who had the power to enforce it. Absolutely. Crystal mind flickered with nervous energy. We believed the human was becoming too powerful. The balance of the galaxy was shifting too much in their favor. You were correct, replied. The balance was shifting, but not because of chief arbitrator's influence. It was shifting because we were choosing to remain hidden. She convinced us that revealing our true nature would cause unnecessary fear. He gestured, and the courtroom filled with holographic displays showing human military installations across the galaxy. There were hundreds of them, all hidden, watching. You were afraid of one human diplomat continued. You should have been afraid of the 50 million human soldiers who were listening to her. Council for Restraint, the representatives, insect-like features, clicked nervously. What sentence will you impose? Stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. In human law, murder carries many possible sentences: execution, imprisonment, exile. But for the murder of Sarah, we have chosen something else. He activated a device that looked like a helmet connected to multiple wires. This is a memory interface device. It allows one consciousness to experience the thoughts and sensations of another. The conspirators began to look truly terrified for the first time. Your sentence is to experience Chief Arbitrator's death from her perspective. Explained, you will feel every moment of pain she endured. You will understand the fear she experienced as the poison destroyed her nervous system. You will know exactly what your actions cost her. On try to back away, that is torture. Civilized justice does not allow such things. Chief Arbitrator represented civilized justice, replied, you murdered her. Universalized crimes receive universalized punishments. One by one, the conspirators were forced to experience Sarah's death. Their screams echoed through the courtroom as they felt the weapon eating away at their nervous systems, experienced the confusion and betrayal Sarah had felt when she realized she had been poisoned, and understood the sadness in her final moments as she realized her life's work for peace was ending. When it was over, several of the conspirators were unconscious, others wept uncontrollably. All of them were forever changed by experiencing the murder they had planned. Your physical punishment is complete, announced. Your remaining sentence is this: you will spend the rest of your lives studying human philosophy of peace. You will learn about the restraint that Chief Arbitrator convinced us to practice. You will understand exactly what you destroyed when you killed her. The conspirators were led away to a detention facility where they would spend decades learning about the peace they had shattered. It was not a death sentence, but in many ways it was worse. They would live knowing they had unleashed something terrible on the galaxy. After the trial called a meeting of all galactic representatives, the atmosphere in the chamber was very different from any previous gathering. Everyone knew the balance of power had shifted permanently. From this day forward, announced, the galaxy operates under new rules. Human ships will patrol all major trade routes. Human observers will monitor all government activities. Human courts will try all cases involving galactic law. The crystalline speaker's body flashed with fearful red light. You are imposing military occupation on the entire galaxy. We are imposing order. Corrected. For 60 years, we allowed you to govern yourselves. Result was constant warfare, economic exploitation, and ultimately the murder of our most peaceful representative. You have proven that you cannot be trusted with self-governance. A new human entered the chamber, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She wore the blue uniform of a chief arbitrator, but she looked very different from Sarah. Where Sarah had seemed gentle, this woman radiated quiet strength. This is Admiral Lisa Tour. Announced, she will serve as the new chief arbitrator. Unlike her predecessor, she will not operate under the illusion that you can be trusted to do the right thing without supervision. Tour stepped forward and addressed the room. I knew Sarah personally. She was my mentor and my friend. She believed that all beings were capable of growth and redemption. I hope she was right, because you will now have the opportunity to prove it. What does that mean? Asked the representative. It means you will learn to coexist peacefully. Tour replied, not because you choose to, but because you have no other choice. Human ships will stop any aggression between your peoples. Human courts will punish any crimes against galactic law. Human administrators will ensure that resources are distributed fairly, the delegate, a replacement for. The imprisoned on spoke up angrily, "You cannot rule the galaxy through force." Tors looked at him with the same cold expression had perfected. "We are not ruling through force, we are ruling because we have the force to stop you from destroying yourselves and others." "There is a difference," she gestured to the large screen behind her, which showed peaceful scenes from across the galaxy. Human ships patrolled trade routes, keeping them safe from pirates. Human peacekeepers separated armies that had been preparing for war. Human aid ships delivered supplies to planets suffering from famine. This is what the galaxy looks like under human protection, Tors explained. No wars, no exploitation, no unnecessary suffering. This is the peace that Sarah dreamed of, enforced by the power she convinced us not to use while she was alive. Over the following months, the new order took hold. Human ships appeared in every system, not as conquerors but as guardians. They stopped conflicts before they could start, prevented crime before it could spread, and administered justice swiftly and fairly. Some races tried to resist, but resistance proved impossible. How do you fight an enemy that knows your every secret, controls your communication networks, and can appear anywhere without warning? How do you rebel against protectors who prevent you from being attacked by others? Gradually, the galaxy began to adapt. Trade flourished under human protection. Scientific research advanced as resources were no longer wasted on weapons. Art and culture bloomed as beings had time for creativity instead of constant preparation for war. But everyone knew the truth that no one dared speak aloud. They were no longer free. They were pets in a zoo run by benevolent but absolute masters. The memorial to Sarah was completed 1 year after her death. It stood in the exact spot where she had died, made of crystal that reflected light from every star in the galaxy. The inscription was written in every known language: "Here died Sarah, who convinced monsters to be gentle. She believed all beings could choose peace over violence. Her murder proved her wrong about some, but her death ensured peace would exist, regardless of choice." Admiral visited the memorial often. He would stand before it for hours, remembering the woman who had shaped human policy for decades. Sometimes other beings would see him there and wonder what he was thinking. They would never know that was remembering Sarah's final words. "Remember who we really are." The galaxy had learned too late exactly who humans really were. They were the apex predators who had chosen to be protectors instead of conquerors. They were the monsters who had decided that peace was worth preserving, even if they had to enforce it through overwhelming power. Sarah had died believing that all beings could choose to do the right thing. Her successors had no such illusions. They would ensure the right things happen whether beings chose them or not. The galaxy was peaceful. Now it would remain peaceful forever. Whether its inhabitants wanted peace or not was no longer their decision to make.